Welcome to the banquet hall here at Jamaica House. It's Wednesday, October 12, 2022. Good morning to our reporters here in the banquet hall at Jamaica House and for those who may be joining us online. This morning, as usual, we have our minister, portfolio responsible minister, the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan. He is the Minister without Portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for information, who will lead the proceedings in terms of post-cabinet media briefing. We're pleased to be joined this morning, too, by the Minister without Portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, and he has a special responsibility for digital transformation. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, the Minister with responsibility for information will lead the proceedings in terms of giving us the cabinet notes. And then, of course, we'll hear from the Minister with responsibility for digital transformation. Minister Morgan.
Thank you very much, Naomi. And first, I'd like to welcome those who are here to participate in this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. I'd like to especially welcome Minister without Portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Floyd Music Green. I guess music is on our minds this morning. Also members of the media who are here, members of the OPM team. Also want to thank members of the GIS technical team who are also here to assist us in this post-cabinet press briefing. I'll just run through very short cabinet decisions. Then I'll ask Mr. Green to give his presentation, after which we will take questions from the media that is gathered. In relation to the award of contracts, we have the award of a contract for the supply of and delivery of liquid petroleum to the Western Regional Health Authority. This is valued at $211 million, inclusive of GCT, and this was decided by Cabinet. There was also award of contract to Astrum Building Systems Limited for the provision of housing infrastructure design and build on lands located at St. Paul's Lane, off Tower Avenue in Towel, St. Andrew. There was also, that contract is valued at $286 million, and that was approved by Cabinet as well. It will see the construction of 16 apartment units, 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom, 8 duplex townhouse units, 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, on 1.6 hectares, which is 4 acres of land. And this is located, as I said earlier, in the Towel area of West Central St. Andrew. There was the award of contract for the procurement of custom and production water meters, handheld readers and software for irrigation systems in the Essex Valley Development Project, as well as the award of a contract for F1 atmospheric pipe steel furnace replacement for PetroJam, valued at $3 million US. We have some board appointments. We have changes to the NIF, National Insurance Fund, with Mrs. Nesta Claire Smith Hunter, now the chairperson, and also Mr. Alexander Williams, appointed chairman of the enterprise team for the public-private partnership to develop the Milk River Hotel and Spa and the Bath Fountain Hotel. We also have additions to the Entertainment Advisory Board, which is Ms. Nadine Sutherland, Mr. Orlando Sinclair, Mr. Jordan McClure, and Mr. David Brown, and a new chairman for the Scientific Authority, I hope I have that correct, Dr. Carl Aitken is now the chairman. Those are the decisions and appointments approved by Cabinet. I will now ask Minister Green to attend upon the podium to give his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Robert Nesta Morgan, First Secretary Naomi Francis. So we're going to speak Let me welcome members of the media. I am happy to be here this morning to share with you at PostCab. We're going to speak a little bit about our social partnership agreement, our new social partnership agreement, and then an update on the national identification system, and just a reminder in relation to Operation Birthright. You know, since 2010, Jamaica has been formulating national partnership agreements, which seeks to bring together our stakeholders around critical issues. You know, our first National Partnership Council emerged out of the global financial crisis of 2007 to 2009. And the government at that time looked at various models across the world in terms of how could we seek to get consensus about the critical issues needed to move our country forward. We've seen this successfully practiced in Ireland, Botswana, and Barbados, and as such, we embarked on that journey. This government remains committed to that concept of social dialogue and also to the social partnership. So we have signed a new social partnership agreement. It's called the Partnership for Jamaica's Strong and Sustainable Recovery, and will run between 2022 and 2026. It does have underlying principles such as the adherence to the rule of law, respect for human rights and civil liberties, accountability, informed leadership, integrity, protection of the natural environment, the improvement of public health, and economic growth established on foundations of inclusiveness, equity, and sustainability. So those are the underlying principles, but we have broken out those principles to focus on 5 main areas under the rubric of peace, prosperity, people, planet, and partnership. And I just want to go into a couple of the areas to narrow down what the partnership will focus on under each of these areas. So just for general knowledge, we do have a wide-based partnership, which includes the parliamentary opposition who have been participating in the process and who, through the leader of the opposition, signed this new partnership agreement. We do have the private sector organization of Jamaica. They as well signed the agreement through the president of the private sector, Keith Duncan. The trade unions have always been at the table, and a representative of the trade unions, Mrs. Helen Davis White, signed on behalf of the trade unions, and civil society sits at the table. And civil society incorporates our churches, our youth, our women, our environmental groupings, and our Sir Richards signed on behalf of civil society. So under prosperity, what we have sought to do under the partnership is to align the initiatives of the government. So we did have a very effective COVID-19 economic recovery task force, which brought together a report. But the question is always, having brought together the report, who provides the sort of oversight, who ensures that the recommendations that have come from the report are being acted upon. And the National Partnership Council will be championing and supporting the recommendations of the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Task Force report. Also, the COVID-19 Labor Market Task Force report. Again, less spoken of, but a sizable report that looked at how do we align labor in this new world reality. So the National Partnership Council will focus on strategies for productivity improvement, building trust between employers and employees, and utilizing the creative capacity of employees. One other thing that the National Partnership Council will seek to drive the agenda and to oversee is the enhancement and spatial expansion of national technology infrastructure and the implementation of our national digitization process. So the partners have aligned around ensuring that all our population over time will have access to reliable internet services and helping to roll out our national identification system. Under the rubric peace, clearly we're not seeking to reinvent the wheel. Again, we're seeking to align our initiatives. So we already have a crime monitoring and oversight committee. And what we want is to ensure that that committee works in tandem with the partnership. So the partnership will take reports from our Crime Monitoring and Oversight Committee on issues relating to justice, safety, security, public order, anti-corruption, adherence to environmental and planning laws, and other things in relation to corruption. Again, in keeping with alignment and under the rubric people, the partnership will focus a lot on education transformation and labor market alignment. So we will support the recommendations of the Education Transformation Commission and act as that advocate for change. So we will work with the Transformation Task Force that has been established by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Education to address the deficiencies in education, vocational training systems, really with the aim of improving quality and outcomes. One of the big focuses and one of the areas that I think we've done a lot of good work on through the partnership is environmental protection. And this agreement is no different. The National Partnership Council will support initiatives to protect and restore our environment and our natural resources, especially those that reduce climate vulnerabilities. Support will also be given to improve the framework of environmental laws with an emphasis on monitoring and enforcement, as well as adaptation and resilience strategies to protect the island against the threat of climate emergency. The last aspect of the partnership is that we are deepening the structure of the partnership. So one of the things that we've done, we've expanded the coordinated committee to incorporate more of the partners. That coordinating committee meets in between the National Partnership Council meetings, which will continue to be chaired by the Prime Minister. The intention is to have those quarterly. Additionally, we will be communicating with you in a much more robust fashion. Oftentimes, there are questions about the validity of the partnership and whether the social dialogue works. It has worked. It has helped Jamaica tremendously battle some of our biggest challenges, and we expect it to continue to work. So we recognize that a deficiency has been the communication of what is happening in the partnership and the areas that we're focused on. Hence, one of the reasons why we are here today. So that is the National Partnership Council and our National Partnership Agreement. Just to move now into our National Identification System and to provide an update in relation to that. So we are on track to roll out our National Identification System by year end. One of the things that we decided to do was to utilize already existing government resources to have a sort of win-win scenario regarding our enrollment centers for a national identification system. So instead of building new enrollment centers, we're partnering with Jamaica Post and Telecoms, our post offices, again, very well located throughout Jamaica, but now underutilized because the world has shifted from actual mail to electronic mail. And as such, our post offices are in need, one, of upgrade and also can serve this purpose of enrollment center. So our first enrollment center should be handed over this week. It has been completed. It's at the Central Sorting Office in Kingston. And again, coming from the partnership, the post office at the Central Sorting Office now has a brand new customer service hall, which we will launch tomorrow, and now has access to high-speed internet, and we're working to help them to automate a number of their services. And this will be the model. So already we've tendered and procured contractors to work on 4 additional post office through Kingston and St. Andrew, which will form a part of our initial rollout. I have indicated that our initial rollout will be by way of a pilot, and we will start the pilot, as I said, towards the end of this year. Just to update on our regulations, because some of the things that are necessary for us to get our pilot up and running are some of the legal framework. So we have completed our regulations, which we have sent to the AG's chambers, and we have gotten a response. And now we're in the process of finalizing those regulations based on the advice from the Attorney General's chambers. We will send that back to the AG's chambers. Then we will publish the regulations. I have committed to share the regulations publicly before we table them in the House, and we will ask people to give some feedback. I will advise that there are already draft regulations on our website at nidsfacts.com. So those who are interested and want to be early can already look at those draft regulations and give some feedback. Part of the development includes the development of a pre-enrollment software. The enrollment process will involve people being able to stay in the comfort of their homes and to put in a lot of their information and make an appointment to go to the enrollment site. And we expect that pre-enrollment software will be completed by the end of this month to early next month. I know a lot of people have been wondering, are we really moving forward with our engagement with our banks? We do see a tremendous part of the National Identification System rollout to make life easier, especially in relation to how we interact with our financial services sector. You will recall that we did sign a memorandum of understanding with the Jamaica Bankers Association, and all 10 major banks are on board. We have moved forward since that. So we've now held 3 workshops with all our banks. We've looked at the legal framework around the National Identification System. We've looked at the verification process, and the most recent workshop looked at the security features of the National Identification Card. So now our banks are fully apprised with what to look for in relation to security when we roll out our National Identification Card. You will also remember that a part of this journey is the digitization of the Registrar's General Department. And as a part of that digitization process, we're building a facility where we will digitize the records from 1930 to present day. That facility is about 90% complete. We expect to open that facility in November and to begin the digitization of our records. The last 2 areas around National Identification System is that, again, we know take-up will depend a lot on usefulness. So we have hired a consultant to look at high-value use cases. In other words, manual processes that can be automated that will use the National Identification System as that key for our citizens to access. And that work is continuing and should be finished by November. We have also sent out a team into the field to look at the views, the knowledge, beliefs, attitudes of our citizens towards our National Identification System. We are taking a data-driven approach, and we will take that information and embark on a communication campaign in short order. Finally, just to remind everybody, we do have Operation Birthright, which has been rolled out, and that is our comprehensive approach of trying to ensure that our citizens who do not have birth certificates and who are unable to afford birth certificates can get birth certificates. So I'm saying to Jamaicans, if you fall in that band, you make $37,000 or less a month, you do not have a birth certificate, you can make your way to an RGD office, or you can download the form at NIDS, NIDS, facts, FACTS.com. You will need a recommended official, but we have a wide array of recommended officials. Your members of parliament all have forms that they can help you with. Justices of the peace, your church, your doctor, your dentist. So you can check the website for more information. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to any questions that you may have. Thank you, Minister Morgan.
Thank you, Minister Green. Really appreciate that update on the Partnership Council as well as NIDS. We'll now take questions. Ms. Francis, our press secretary, will manage this process. Just identify your media house and your name, and we'll try our best to answer your questions. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister. All right. Thank you, Minister. All right, so we do have a question first from Mr. Hall. Oh, your pardon, Ms. Francis, my name's
Thanks, Naomi. Morning. Minister, I believe in 2019, the Broadcasting Commission urged the government to give it broader powers in terms of policing the internet. A study it had conducted in October 2018 found that 87% of participants believed that children were being exposed to dangerous content, and they were concerned about that. Has Cabinet considered that request?
Well, that was before my time as Information Minister, so I am aware of the conversations that were taking place at the time. but I would not be privy to what was discussed in cabinet. What I can do, though, is I can ask the Broadcasting Commission and others to give me information on it and get back to you on it, as I was before I became a minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Let's go to Mr. Hall.
Morning, Minister.
Morning.
Quick check. Has the cabinet considered engaging Venezuela in getting the Petrocary oil deal back in place? And have you figured out what to do the money that we have for Venezuela that we had held up in the purchase of the refinery?
Well, I think the money is still held in trust, but I'm not sure. I will have to confirm with Minister Vaz in the Ministry of Science. I think a question was asked here previously about it. As it relates to the engagement, I'm unaware of any such engagement. No discussion has taken place in cabinet as it relates to that. Ms. Francis?
All right, thank you, Minister. Of course, this is our full face-to-face post-cabinet media briefing. Unfortunately, we do not have media representatives online. Are there any other questions from the floor, Ms. Francis? All right, here we go.
Maybe Minister Green could assist here, but there are growing complaints online in terms of vendors not accepting cards from Jamaica in terms of purchases and online transaction. Has this been brought to the attention of Minister Green? And are you in dialogue with the Finance Ministry and other parties to remedy the situation?
So it's a long answer. A lot of this has to do with current practices that have evolved in our society, such as scamming and other online fraud. There is also issues related to correspondent banking, which is also a part of some of the challenges that we face as a society. Being gray listed in particular jurisdictions has really limited, in many cases, the ability of Jamaicans to do transactions internationally. Your specific question, though, relates to actions by persons within our jurisdiction and some outside who have been using the online system to perpetrate particular fraud against customers in other jurisdictions. And I think I'm going to ask Dr. Nigel Clark to speak on it a little bit more because he would have the specific data on it. But I think Jamaicans need to understand that the actions of some of our countrymen will have impacts on our personal lives. I personally have seen some of the conversations online. Persons are not able to pay using their credit card on particular merchants. A lot of these things have to do with trust. How much do people trust the systems and the persons from particular jurisdictions who they're doing business with? And I think as a society, we have to work harder to rebuild the trust that people have for us by not promoting, endorsing, or engaging in particular activities that may cause other countries and jurisdictions to start looking at us in a particular way. But I promise you, and I think it's a very important question, because we have had discussions about correspondent banking. We have had discussions about grey listing and what we can do as a society and as a region through CARICOM, because CARICOM has appointed a member of CARICOM to lead discussions. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is also a part of the discussions to normalize our international banking relationships. But I think Dr. Clark, I'm sure he'd be willing to give you more specific and particular details on why these things are happening.
Thank you, Minister Morgan. Minister Green, just in terms of some clarity around the NIDS issue you mentioned, could you refresh the memories of persons concerning timelines on the card distribution and certainly when persons will be able to use that to do transactions?
And while you're there, Minister Green, can you tell us what's the spend so far to roll out NIDS and what's the budget by the time you get to the pilot phase at the end of the month?
Okay.
End of the year.
I would have to get the spend for out about, I can get you that before the end
of today. Clearly, it's something that is very closely monitored, especially based on the how NIDS is a project, as you know. So I'll get you the information in terms of the actual spend to where we are and for the end of the year. In terms of the timelines, what we have been given is, because there are different components in relation to the national identification system, we've been given timelines in relation to each component. So we did say that we would expect our card production center, as we call it, card personalization center, to be finished by September. That was done, that is finished. Our card production is really a personalization center. The cards will be produced externally and will be personalized in the center. That has been completed, and all our staff members in relation to our card personalization center have been employed. We now move into our enrollment center, which we had envisioned will be finished by early October. That is on track. That will be finished, as I said, should be handed over this week. We have already employed our enrollment officers. We've already employed thus far 4 enrollment officers. We've already started training of our verification officers. Those have already been employed. The other areas that we have to work on now is our regulations, which we're hoping that we will get back to the AG's chambers this week. Hopefully the turnaround time will be quick to get it back to us. Hopefully by the end of October, we should be sharing it with the public to bring to the House in November. That's what we're going for. In that time period, we expect our pre-enrollment software will be completed. Also, we are working on our inspectorate. So just to refresh your memories, we will have an independent oversight in the form of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. We've done all those briefings already, and now we will be doing some legal movements to ensure that that is indicated. That section of the act is brought into force in Parliament, and that is stipulated for November. So we do expect to be printing and handing out cards, as I've said, before the end of the year, but we're going to start with a pilot. Yes, the pilot will be limited in number and in scope, because we want to ensure that people go through the process, that we look at the time frames, the time frame that will take for verification, the time frame that will take for enrollment. We do expect to go island-wide within the second quarter of next year. We've already started a procurement that will lead to the enrollment centers in each parish. We will have multiple enrollment centers across various parishes. We've already identified 24 post offices that will serve as enrollment centers across Jamaica. So by the second quarter of next year, we should be rolling out island-wide. Clearly, we will do the pilot, we will review the pilot, we will take those learnings in our island-wide rollout.
Thank you, Minister. I asked because there was some discussion online, especially with the diaspora, and they wanted to ensure that they have clarity in terms of whether or not they can also access the NIDS cards as well when they do transactions when they come back to Jamaica.
Yes, so our diaspora, you know, our national identification card or national identification system is open to anybody who's a citizen of Jamaica or is normally resident in Jamaica for at least 6 months, right? So it is open to our diaspora. They will have to come to Jamaica to do the enrollment process. They can pre-enroll online and make the appointment so they can align their enrollment with their visit to Jamaica. And we really do hope that the diaspora embraces the national identification card. We have been, through the RGD, really making good inroads of reaching out to the diaspora. In fact, a team from the RGD was in the UK, along with a team from PICA, to reach out to the diaspora around matters such as birth certificates, things of that nature. And based on the preliminary feedback, we would have already engaged about 500 Jamaicans living in the United Kingdom over a 1-week period. So we do see that there's a lot of interest. So the diaspora, the national identification system card is open to you. And I would say next year would be a good time in terms of for them to sign up for the pre-enrollment, come to Jamaica, get their national identification card.
Thank you very much, Minister Green. Ms. Francis, do we have any more questions from members of the media?
My namesake would like another.
Oh, hi, Kimon.
Hi, Minister. Is the government using the Broadcasting Commission to fight crime via its immediate ban on music glorifying criminal activities?
I mean, that's not the mandate of the Broadcasting Commission. The commission's responsibility is to govern the content based on the Radio Rediffusion Act that is broadcast by its licensees. The act and the regulations are very clear that you cannot promote illegality or you cannot promote content that violates your license. I think a lot of us, including members of the media, have complained over the past several years about the type of content that they hear on the airwaves. And let's give a scenario. My office is in front of Clarendon College. So a child walks through the gate of Clarendon College. They go on a bus, chopping songs, Molly songs. They come off the bus a little bit up the road, on Pond Road. Somebody's playing a radio, chopping songs, Molly songs. They go home, the uncle is playing a radio, chopping songs, Molly songs. We have a responsibility for the spaces that we control to set the standard and set an example. We're not fettering people's right to free speech. There are so many other portals you can use to promote your artistic freedom. But when it comes to free to air, that is accessible to every single member of our society, no matter their age, from the baby to the elderly, can access free to air. And the thing about Radio Kimon is that if I turn on a radio here, I'm not the only one who is hearing it. Everybody in here will hear it. It's a public facility that caters to the public, that is licensed by the government, that is regulated by particular laws. So it is not about fighting crime. It's about decency and standards. That's all it is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. There are no further questions, so you can close.
Thank you very much, Naomi. I want to thank Minister Green. I want to thank members of the media, members of the OPM team. Thank you very much, Naomi, for assisting us this morning. Thanks, members of GIS. I think we had an issue with our live stream today. We were not able to broadcast live, but we will be posting our content later on the various platforms for the public to have access. So until next time, thank you very much for tuning in to Post Cabinet Press Briefing. Have a wonderful and safe day.